graduating from one of the world's top business schools that are joining us at the CentreCourt Festival is, of course, joining a network for life of alumni, all of those classmates that that somehow help you get through those accounting exams in year one, but of course then provide the sort of support for the rest of your career. We talk about the loyalty of alumni, how they then give back to their school, and I'm delighted to welcome our next guest who has given back to Cornell and the Johnson School, where he graduated in 1998, to the extent that he now actually teaches some of the courses at Cornell. And I think probably that's a class that you would want to take. So I'm very happy to welcome Hernan Saenz, a partner and now the head of global practice for performance improvement at Bain. Hernan, thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, it's Matt. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No, well, the focus of your work, of course, at Bain, that's sees you now in the Dallas office, but has taken you all over the world, focusing on corporate transformation, turnarounds, large-scale change. You're going to see a lot of this in the next few years, right? This is going to be a busy time for you, Bain consultants.
No doubt. We are expecting COVID-19 to create a new world, right? We're calling it a new normal, and to respond to that, most businesses will have to fundamentally transform themselves, starting with strategy, right? But everything about how they go to market and serve customers, their entire value chains will change, and even the way they work. And so, given my role at Bain and that I focus on transformations, yes, I expect it to be an incredibly busy but incredibly inspiring time for us.
Right. Now, you did undergrad at Harvard in economics. You also have a master's from Stanford in economics. The appetite that Bain has, both for those graduates, but certainly for the MBA graduates of the top schools. Why do you think there's such a strong synergy between a company like Bain and those graduates coming out of Cornell and other top schools?
Well, look, there's a couple of things that we require or need at Bain in order to do our job, right? First of all, we need extraordinarily fast and well-trained minds. So, they need to have a lot of hardware, right? A big chip that processes quickly, but an incredible amount of good software that allows to solve some of the hardest problems in business, some of the hardest problems that organizations face. And institutions like Cornell or Stanford or Harvard are amazing in sort of loading that software into our brains, right? In teaching us how to do things extraordinarily well. And so, in my case at Cornell, right, I not only got the language of business, which was incredibly important for somebody who wasn't coming from business, but I got a lot more, right? I was taught how to lead. I was taught how to think strategically. I was taught, a fair bit about psychology of humans and sociology of human groups and how to read organizations, et cetera, right? And so by the time I graduated, right, I was a well-loaded computer, if you will, with a lot of really interesting software, right? I could walk into an organization and not only be able to diagnose the strategic problems, but also very quickly figure out how the culture and the decision nodes work, so I could actually get results implemented in those places. And the training of places like Cornell brings a very also EQ side, human side to things. We are taught a lot, but not only by the curriculum and the method of instruction, but how we work in teams and everything that happens from an extracurricular perspective. How to basically understand people, be empathetic, listen well, etc. And so, amazing training for the consulting industry, right? Because ultimately, right, we are people who know how to analyze problems incredibly well and can use that analysis to help organizations and their leaders get results delivered.
Right. Now, of course, Cornell in recent years have taken on the New York-based campus on Roosevelt Island, that Cornell Tech and the one-year program. It brings them very close to the markets, to the tech firms that have major presence in New York City. But Ithaca, you talk about that sort of empathy. It's a very close-knit community for the full-time MBA program. How does that play out in the sort of both the bonds that it creates, but that sort of two-year experience of learning together?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I got into a lot of programs, and people always ask me, why did you pick Cornell? It's a little bit in the middle of nowhere. And perhaps it wasn't as highly ranked as some of the other schools I got into. And to me, when I saw Cornell, it was exactly what I thought I needed. Part of it was indeed that close-knit community, right? And it had at least two components to it. The first one is by meeting the students, by meeting the candidates, I got a sense that all to serve all was the way that community was wired, right? All to lift all, and I felt in different programs a different vibe, and to me that was incredibly important. This idea that I would come out higher no matter who I was, right? Because the school and the community was pushing me up. The second thing is that the size of the program, and where it's located, creates bonds with the faculty that operate at a fundamentally different level. Yes, they're the same scholars, right, that you'll find in a different place, extraordinary, right? They're very good teachers, but you build personal bonds with them. And so I have remained quite close with a handful of the professors who have been actually absolutely critical in the last 20 years of my career. Right, they have been my clients, they have been my mentors, right? They have been my mentees, you name it. I don't think I would have achieved that or had that opportunity in a program based in a place that the community is not quite as tight. The third thing is that because of the linkage of Cornell to the Ithaca community, it brings a linkage into the community, including the businesses and the not-for-profit side, that just gives you leadership opportunities that you probably wouldn't have somewhere else. And so, I was able to write business plans for businesses in the community. I was able to do consulting projects. And so, right, as part of my 2-year education, right, I had done things that were very real world and not classroom based, which again, may not happen in a different context.
Mm. Your career, of course, graduating from the school in the late 90s, you've seen the boom of tech, the bust of tech. You've seen financial crises. Now, of course, we face COVID. How do you think, and anyone that's looking at business school naturally thinks about the positions they might secure as they first graduate from the class of MBA? But as you look at it from a sort of a 20-year perspective and the return, how does that change the prism of assessment of what the MBA brings you?
The beauty of the MBA, right, is its flexibility. To me, what an MBA gives you, other than a language, if you sort of invest in the right moments and learn the right things, is it gives you the ability to solve problems. And so you do that by learning a set of tools and learning how to integrate those tools. And again, in the right context, in the right communities, right, it gives you the ability to relate to people, operate in teams, understand organizations better. And by the way, those are two things that are not going away. Problems, we will continue to have them, and sort of people who can think creatively and integratively about how to solve them are going to be in demand. And people and organizations. Hopefully we'll have many of them. And so MBAs, right, with that incredible combination of IQ, EQ, will just be in tremendous demand. Now, I always wanted to join a program, and that's part of the reason why I went to Cornell, that had enormous flexibility in the curriculum. Why is that, right? Because I don't want to be the average MBA, and I don't want to be in a school that produces many of the same, right? And Cornell just, it's so flexible, it allowed me to highly differentiate. And I by the time I graduated 2 years later, yes, I had an MBA, that was my title, right? But I had done very specific things that in my case positioned me for the job that I really wanted, which was to join Bain, and not only to join Bain, but to become a partner at Bain and eventually a leader in this firm.
Right. We talked about hardware and software, the IQ and the EQ. Clearly, the professional success that you've enjoyed in the last 20 years. At a personal level, what did either during the Cornell experience being an MBA student, but as you look back, what's it given you personally?
It's a really interesting question, right? It gives you, there's a few things you get, right? You get a language and you get some tools, and we all expect that. It gave me some specialization. It got me faster out of the gate. But all of this is externally focused. I think you're asking me about internally, right? And I think an MBA is amazing from an internal journey perspective. Let's be clear, right? You're in your late 20s, early 30s. You've been out in the world for a while, right? You've been out of a campus for a while, and all of a sudden you have this 2-year period to really understand who you are. And so what did it give me, right? First of all, I started to be really clear on what matters to me, right? And so I had a sense that learning was a big thing for me, and so I wanted to be less of a master of a trade and more be in a place that I would learn all the time and be challenged. It helped me understand what gives me energy, right? Personal interactions give me a lot of energy. It helped me understand what takes away my energy, and sort of, tough cultures, bad cultures, competitive cultures, right? Not feeling safe, that takes away a lot of my energy. And so, I was very clear through a lot of introspection over 2 years. And again, a place like Ithaca is perfect for that, to really understand, look, what matters to me, what gives me energy, and what takes it away. And so that led to me to choosing not only my profession, right? I did not enter business school with a final decision on profession, but also what firm, right? And even what to do outside of work, right? And so big lessons for me, like Cornell was a place with very positive energy, a very positive community. Since then, I orient towards places with lots of positive energy, very strongly knit community, number one, right? Big lesson for me, positive energy opens doors, right? People who bring positive energy have their doors open everywhere, right? And so biggest lesson for my kids, right? If I could only give them one, always bring positive energy everywhere you go. And a corollary of that is every interaction is a great opportunity to gain or lose share, right? Gain or lose equity. And so in many ways, right, I would say that for me at least, the journey, being in Ithaca, being that close to professors, having that very, very warm, supportive environment, it just told me a lot about who I was and where I would thrive.
Right. Well, you mentioned bringing that positive energy as a learning lesson for your kids, and I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, of course, that you've gone back to Cornell, but now at the front of the classroom. I have no doubt that positive energy is something that you impart to all of those Cornell MBA students of this generation. I'm glad that we were able to share some of that energy in this interview. So Hernan, thank you. It was an absolute pleasure. Busy times. I hope that the next time you do come back to Paris with family, we'll get the chance to share some of that positive energy too.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you for doing this and helping a whole new generation get to pick the place where they will develop.
We're both very lucky. We love what we do. So
that's right.